Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the latest from Die Apocalypse Heute Weltkinder, out April 22nd on Nuclear Blast. This album has 10 tracks, 43 minutes in length, and this is the band's 12th full-length album. They are a German heavy metal band, and this is a concept, theme-driven album. You're going to see it in the lyrics, you're going to see it somewhat in the overall soundscape, and definitely the impact that those two elements have in the overall construction. It's a theme that really represents the world that we're currently living in, and maybe because of that it allows the album to feel more balanced, it allows the album to feel more connected, but still be super dynamic, because each and every single song is still going to have its own DNA, still going to have its own identity, but never really losing track of what the overall connection of this album is, of what brings it together, and the flow that you have to create so that the listener can stay engaged and connected with the album from start to finish. You may not always see the road ahead, you may not always find that the path is clear in front of you, but you're so engaged with the album, you're so engaged with the songs that everything else becomes secondary. And this design really allows the album to have a sense of continuity, still have a sense of diversity, still feel balanced, but still feel dynamic. I love this style, I love this construction, perhaps one of the best albums in terms of design that they've released in the last 10 years. As far as soundscape goes, it's definitely a heavy metal record. That is the baseline of the soundscape. That is the baseline of everything you're going to experience sound-wise on this record. But it doesn't stay just there. It really goes into other directions, perhaps bringing a lot of the past influences of the band into the forefront. You're going to see some folk elements throughout the entire record. You're going to see some industrial elements throughout the entire record. And then all of those elements are kind of blended into that pot that just really allows that heavy metal sound to be the main course, to be the main ingredient, and everything else is just adding flavor to it. This makes the record have a bigger sound experience, have a more powerful sound experience. It also allows the album to go into different directions and mix different styles of songs, putting tracks that have more volatility, that feel heavier, that sound heavier, right next to songs that come across as just pure ballads, not just from the sound but also from the vocal approach and even the atmosphere that they create. And that is something that's really interesting, because it doesn't matter if you're listening to one of the heavier songs or you're listening to one of the softer songs. The atmosphere throughout this album, because of the theme of the record, really feels consistent from track to track. It might change in terms of how dark one song is versus the other, but the overall sensation, the overall vibe that you're getting song in and song out is very constant, is very linear throughout the entire record. Now, some of the key elements of the soundscape of this album are definitely the keys, the bass, drums, and guitars. These are, to me, are the four pillars of what drives the overall soundscape, of what drives the overall sound experience. The keys on this record are really interesting because they add to the atmosphere, but they don't have a direct impact on the overall record. They're just a layer, they're just a spice, something that allows them to create perhaps a little slight ripple in the atmosphere, a little slight ripple in the soundscape, giving songs some more of a direct approach, giving songs some more life, a little bit more energy, but not necessarily allowing that energy to permeate throughout the entire record or even take control of the songs themselves. I like this element because it almost goes unnoticed at times. Now, as far as the bass is concerned, the bass sound on this record is phenomenal. It grounds the record, it gives it some heaviness, it gives it some grooviness, it adds parameters, it allows the songs to feel a little bit more constant and sound a little bit better grounded. Really important element because it's super noticeable in terms of the sound that it creates and the impact that it has in the soundscape and atmosphere. Same could be said for the drums. I love the power that the drums have while not overpowering the experience. They are heavy, they ground the album, they push the record forward, they add momentum to some of these tracks, but they never really jump in the forefront and take control of the overall experience. I like this approach. It's important to give the drums the necessary heaviness, the necessary punch, but not necessarily allowing them to take control of the entire record or take control of specific songs. You can make the drums as heavy as you want, but you still need to allow the vocals and guitars to really dictate where these tracks are going, and that's exactly what's going to happen throughout this entire record. And speaking of guitars and vocals, I love the guitar sound, I love the approach, mixing in acoustic guitars, electric guitars, allowing them to have a little bit of life, allowing them to have a little bit of soul, and really becoming the energy source of the entire record. When the songs need to be heavier, when they need to have a bigger push, when they need to have a bigger drive, the guitars come in and they definitely provide that energy, they definitely provide that fuel that really sparks that fire. When the songs need to go a little bit more melancholic, when they have more of a ballad style or a ballad approach, you bring in the acoustic guitars, you strip out the guitars ever so slightly in order for other elements to come into the forefront, in order for other elements to drive the experience, while still keeping the guitars in the backdrop as the spinal cord of the construction of the tracks themselves. Really interesting dynamic that works extremely well throughout the entire record, really merging a lot of the different eras of the band itself on one single record in one single element. Now, the vocals are perhaps my favorite element of them all. I love the sound, I love the tone, I love the approach, how wide of a variety of styles we're gonna get. I mean, it's just phenomenal recording as far as the vocal approach is concerned. It's powerful at times, it's melancholic, it's melodic, it's dark, it's aggressive, it's intensive. It has great movement from song to song and within the songs themselves. And then using layers, using backing vocals, using choirs in order to define better the way the tracks are constructed, in order to bring the atmosphere of certain tracks above others, in order to make them a little bit more noticeable, really sets these songs apart vocally. I was really taken back by how strong the vocals are from start to finish. While I don't understand the language, I was really captivated by them, by the tone, by the delivery, and by the way they caress you, and by the way they hold your hand and carry you all the way through across 10 songs. Absolutely phenomenal. Now, all around, I mentioned this earlier, as far as the construction, better constructed album from this band, at least in the last 10 years, and I'm gonna go as far as to say that this is my favorite album from the band in that same time period. This is a band that for me, it's always been on or off. It's either I really hate the album or I really like the album. It's never, I can never find a record that's somewhere in between, and there's been a little bit of a love-hate relationship as far as I'm concerned with the later material that they've put out there. It's just not something that I've been able to gravitate to, because I've always felt like the albums were really chaotic. They didn't have a spinal cord, they didn't have a sense of direction or even a sense of purpose, or at least was very difficult for me to find it. And on this record, from the time I pressed play, I was able to connect with the album immediately. I understood what the album was all about. I enjoyed the ebbs and flows. I enjoyed the peaks and valleys, the differences that this record had to offer, without ever really losing track of where I was and where I was going. Beautiful way of constructing an album, beautiful way of adding diversity to a record, but not allowing the album to be chaotic at the same time. Now, as far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Alles ist gut, a track that has movement, that moves well. It's not fast, it's not slow, it has some movement, and you see that movement perhaps more so between the verses and the chorus. It has a dark undertone, it helps define the atmosphere, and then as you move from verses to chorus, that's where you see the track perhaps gaining a little bit more momentum. It has a brighter sound, a brighter performance, a brighter outlook in the chorus, and definitely a little bit darker and heavier in the verses, but the transition is so well done that it just makes the track really fly by. It gives great movement to the track all around. Now, the vocals sound phenomenal. There are some layers to the vocals that just have that allow the song to have more substance. It allows the song to be a little bit bigger, a little bit thicker, and that also helps with the overall atmosphere and that darkness, that undertone of darkness that exists throughout the entire track. Next, you have Leinen Los. The bass on this song, I really have to start by saying that the bass on this song is phenomenal. It really sets the tone for the mood, for the atmosphere, for the soundscape. It's a track that oozes of melody, but when you add that melody to that heavy, thick bass line, you really have something a lot larger. It gives texture to the song. A song that's an absolute dark ballad through and through, musically, vocally, and vocally it's a super strong song because it really depends on the vocals to capture the attention of the listener and to really take the listener throughout the entire journey of going through this song. It has darkness, it has beauty, it has movement, it has some folk elements, and those folk elements really add life, it adds texture to how this whole track comes together. It actually enhances the feel of a ballad. It really feels earthy. This is a song that feels connected with the planet that we live in, and because of that, those folk elements allow that sensation to be enhanced, making the song a little bit more straightforward at times, but still very textured and very layered. Incredible performance, a song that has a very unique sound, very unique atmosphere, a very unique way of being put together. And then last but not least, we have Blå. Blending acoustic guitars into this song really allows the track to feel stripped down at times, and then allowing the chorus to be heavier, to be thicker, creates this incredible unbalance between one and the other. But it's an unbalance that's not abrupt. When you move from the verses to the chorus, the transition is very smooth. You almost expect the song to gain momentum, to gain volume, going from that acoustic stripped down approach to a more heavier approach, making the song have like these jolts of energy every time the chorus comes in, making it impactful musically and vocally, making it balanced but still unbalanced in terms of the construction and the soundscape that it creates. Two very different sides of one single coin, but the way they transition from one to another is the winning formula, because it doesn't make the song feel broken. It makes the song feel like it has a sense of continuity. It actually makes the song feel like it's building towards that climatic chorus where the song becomes bigger, brighter, heavier, and just with more power. This is it. Die Apocalyptischen Heiter with Wild Kinder, out April 22nd on Nuclear Blast. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.